Hey guys, I just thought I would make a little resource for you. Um, just looking at landfall, I know that a few weeks ago we had a meeting after the Portland RC, and I said I wanted to talk about landfall briefly, just because of the results it was putting up. One of the things that sometimes happens is that a deck doesn't make top eight, and people don't really take notice of it. But if you look at the data, it still has the best results of the comp, and that was the situation in Portland, and think I tried to mention that the other day in the meeting. And then the South American regional championships happened, and I kind of proved my point with three lists making the top eight. Um, if you look at these two numbers here, I mean, this is a skew of the graph. I always like to see the skew because the further the decks are pushed up to this end, the less symmetric it is. The better the deck's performing. However, this number here, this is the amount of decks that had a positive win rate out of the all the. I think this was landfall in general, so I was including Selesnya in this. But the mono green decks did perform slightly better. I have been doing this for a while. This is the highest percentage I've ever seen in all my time making these graphs. Probably for the past, I don't know, 4 RCs we've been to. I've been making these. I haven't seen a deck perform this well, which is why I felt the need to mention it the other day. And then we had the South American regionals over here, further proving the point. The 13, and I didn't look at the other lists. I was only really interested in Mono Green because I thought that was the best list. But yeah, I feel that you had two decks that performed negatively, two that broke even, and then these three here, or I should say, these 9 here all did incredibly well. Both of them had a very, very good win rate with more than 2/3 of the decks going positive, which is very hard to do in these competitions where they're structured. The majority of decks break even or go negative with players losing when they know when they lose a match and no longer have a chance to make a solid finish. And I get excited when I see that 45% of the decks submitted of certain deck lists have positive win rates, let alone 67. So I thought it might be something to talk about. I'm going to talk about the different brews that people have made, different versions of the deck. I'm going to talk about how best to fight against it. And I'm also going to show my version of the deck, what I think is the best. I think it's important to note that every version of the deck that has been built performs incredibly well. And I might talk about certain cards being not as good. You can still have fun with these cards and win with them, and the decks that play them are still good. It's just the core of the deck is so powerful that any version that you make, whether it be all in on Green Shell or playing Tifa, they all kind of work. There is one exception. There was one different version of the deck that I thought was kind of interesting. It just broke even. And I think the version is bad, but I just like it because I like it when people do things a little bit different. It's always fun to see innovation. But yeah, I'll start off by looking at the different versions of the deck. I should say before I move on that it is kind of frustrating because all the decks in South America were all about Green Shell Nursery, and that's what they were all in on. And then all the decks that were in Portland were leaning more towards straight up Harmonizer Ascension. I think the Harmonizer Ascension version is a lot better. I think the Green Shell version is a bit too slow. But again, they both did very well. I wish there was a control. I think there was one version of the deck in the South American RC that was playing a list close to what I like, and they still performed pretty highly. Just from my memory, I'm trying to remember where they fell. I think they fell sort of on the second page. Like they were really up there, but they weren't one of the lists that made top eight. However, I still think that was a better version, and that was kind of revealed less through the data, but more through the gameplay. I'm happy to be wrong about that, but I guess that is what we are here to talk about. But yeah, let's just start off by looking at the different versions of the deck, because there's so many different ways you can play it. I'm going to back out of this. So this one was one that didn't do too well. And this was a version going into Harmonizer and I still Ascension, but a lot of the versions, the South American versions, were cutting one harmonizer. This cut two, and they're also doing the Ouroboros thing, rhythm thing, and they've got a crater hoof. So they're doing the Simic thing, except instead of going Simic, they're leaning into harmonizer combo. I thought it was cute. It wasn't good. I guess Formidable Speaker can help you get your pieces, but it seemed that there were more powerful things happening. If you were going to do this, just play a Simic. But real fun. I thought it was nice. I thought it was interesting. There was also a Tifa version of the stick. I think the stick went 8 and 6, so it went positively. And you're trying to utilize Tifa, Traveling Chocobo, leaning heavy much more on Snakes available and Royal Treatment. Deck's fine. Deck wins games. I think this is the classic version, like when they sort of released Tifa and Traveling Chocobo. Everyone built this version of the deck. It wasn't as good as the Harmonizer, and so everyone kind of forgot about Landfall, and then someone discovered, oh wait, you can just do the Harmonizer thing and have a much more powerful build. But this was absolutely fine. Again, I would recommend other versions of it, but it wins games. It's still fine. It's still good. Back it up. This one I thought was really cool, and actually, this did much better. This actually had a very good win rate. I don't quite remember what it was, but I remember it being the best of the niche versions of the deck. And I love Rampant Growth. Here it is, making an appearance. And we're not playing Harmonizer. This is not a Harmonizer deck. This is a Green Shell deck. And I feel like if you are going to play Green Shell, this is kind of what I would want to do. Your biggest problem with Green Shell is that standard at the moment, you know how fast it is. And if you kind of go half Green Shell, half Harmonizer, you do struggle with the tempo. Trying to play a 5-drop, yes, you go nuts with Sapling Nursery, but Sapling Nursery is a 5-drop in itself. Very rarely do you get to drop this on turn 4. Occasionally you do. But when you do, you don't really make guys. There are crazy Badgermole hands where you can play a Sapling Nursery into an escape tunnel and have a really good time on turn 4. But for the most part, you need this kind of build with guide triggers shell, so good, to kind of make this all work. I like this build. I think this is actually something maybe worth investigating because the sample size was so small. Maybe this is a better version and the player just had some unlucky games. But yeah, this is something I would really, really want to try. And did good. Not the version I'm on at the moment, but really interesting. Taking out Harmonizer is a very brave move. The card is powerful. Before I go into the main builds, was there anyone else? There's a South American build, my build. Yeah, okay, let's get the South American build. So this one is the one that was most popular, and they actually cut a Harmonizer, which I thought was insane. I mean, this is part of your combo. This card, like, when do you not want to draw it? The games you draw a Harmonizer are so different to the games you do. What I really liked about this is a 2 Mossborn Hydra. I saw a bit of, I guess, a slight correlation. I'm not sure how significant you'd say it was, but the decks that played 1 or 2 Hydra seemed to perform a lot better than the decks that didn't. I'm loving having 1 Hydra in my deck. I play 4 Charm at the moment for me, which kind of means I have 5 Hydras if I want them. I think I love my 4-ofs. You may have noticed that considering the lists I've submitted in the past. This is a card I really don't want 4 of, but I love having 1 of. And this deck was the one that came second in South America. You'll see this player at the next Pro Tour. And yeah, I think the 2 Hydra serve them well. So, again, this is a bit in between playing 2 Green Shell. I feel it's a bit slow. The main issue I have with these builds is the black-white Deceit matchups are so easy to win if you have Esper Origins. Esper Origins mitigates the flood. It allows you to rig the top of your deck so you hit your pieces. And basically, if you have 2 of these things, like a Harmonizer and an Ice Steel and Earthbending Ascension, or Earthbending Ascension and Harmonizer, if you have like 2 out of 3 of the combo, you will kill them over a couple of turns. You just won't have the win straight away. And having if you like, an Ascension in play, casting an Origins really allows you to dig to that other piece. This version plays more lands, so you're more likely to flood. and it also doesn't play Origins, so you can't Origins your way out of the flood. It just makes things a little bit more awkward. Yes, you can draw with Green Shell. Yes, Suppling Nursery allows you to turn your lands into pieces. Also, the combination of Barsing Say and Promising Vein, I think, is fantastic. And I think that's something that the SCG decks were missing, the Portland decks were missing. But when I played this version of the deck, I found that if my opponent's on Deceit, and they get to play, 3 Deceits a game because of Spider-Man, I don't really. I end up flooding more often than not, and it makes those games much harder. I think the deck still wins games, and you win those games, and it's still very, very powerful. I think there are better versions of it. I would, like, if you submit this, I'm like, yeah, sure, it makes perfect sense. I just think there are slightly more powerful versions of the deck. Now, my version of the deck is a bit more inspired by the Portland lists. Um, I think, like, there's some matches where Chocobo's really, really bad. The main reason you want it, though, is when you bring in Melt Strider Resolves, you need the Chocobo to make those work. If you're playing against Airbending and you want to kill a Bear Druid that 2/3 that switches on their entire deck, if you want to kill that with a Melt Strider Resolve, you kind of can't unless you harmonize in a Harmonizer, and if you're doing that, you've probably won. Chocobo is your way to sort of build up and then turn 3, crack a land, play Melt Strider, and, disrupt what they're doing. So things are... I guess I'll go to things I'm not playing soon. But I do think Esper Origins is important. There are matchups where you do take it out. Those are particularly the fast matchups. But again, I think it's just so powerful against Deceit. It's something that they can't discard. It being an element is also an elemental is also very relevant. I remember playing against this deck early on. You go to Sunderflock their stuff. Esper Origin stays in play. They untap. They add 2, and they attack with a 60 power Trampler. So the thing about this deck, it does have the ability to kind of win out of nowhere at times. I've won so many games I probably didn't deserve to win. Won so many games where my opponent just made mistakes because I didn't know how big I could go, how quickly. Which at RCs is relevant. I know we're playing against good players, but oftentimes the players at these RCs aren't as rehearsed as perhaps you'd expect. So, I love Esper Origins. Chocobo, I think, is a necessity. You love it against the fast decks. You get rid of it against the slower decks. If you're playing in Melt Strider's Resolve, you need 4 of. I've got my combo here. That's fantastic. I've got 1 Hydra because I've really enjoyed just having access to 1. Again, you can find it off Charms. I am playing 4 Charms. 1, because they find 2 out of 3 of your pieces. And again, as I said, if you have those 2 pieces, if you have a Ice Tool and a Harmonizer, generally you've got a few manlands hanging around from Earthbending. You can make all of them like 10 ones. You get so many triggers off your lands and everything gets more power. Naturally, you want the trample. You don't always have it, but you can sort of force them to chump and make actions they don't want to play. You can also fetch your Hydra. But the other thing is it kind of kills everything. Against Lessons, their monuments and their artist talents go. Against Airbending, you can kill their pieces and stop them from comboing off. Against Control, you can find your Ice Steel and start chucking a bunch of stuff in your graveyard. Particularly your Esper Origins, like milling 4 cards a turn with Ice Steel Explorer, you will hit Esper Origins. Like, it just always happens, and then it just gives you so much more play. Now, this deck was putting up really bad results. I was actually really low on it before Portland. Look at my graphs. I was wondering what on earth changed, and the answer is Sapling Nursery. This card made the deck so much more consistent, so much more powerful. I don't think it is a 4 of unless you're going hard into that rampy green shell plan. And again, I'm really worried about the flood in that plan. You don't want to have like 3 of these in hand. And a green shell and just be getting beaten down for the first 5 turns. Lessons can win by turn 5. They can draw their deck by turn 5. So, I like having 2, and I've got 1 in the board for the controlish matchups. That's been working fine for me. And then the last thing that I really liked from South America was the addition of Promising Vein. I don't think... Maybe there was 1 Promising Vein in the Portland lists, and literally one copy was playing one. They were just on 4 tunnel, 4 passage, and mainly 4 Basking Say. I like 3 Basking Say. I always have one in play. I've never got to the point where I'm like, oh, I don't have a. There's always, like you'll find one if you need one. There's Explorer. I've actually never brought it back with Explorer because you're usually killing people other ways with fetch lands, but 3 has always been fine for me. If you really need you like the first one's great. If you really need the second, you will find it. Escape Tunnel again has the benefit of being able to go under a wide board, make something unblockable, and harmonize through it. That's another way you can win with just these and without the Airbending Ascension. And that's also fine. Cutting 1 just so I have enough basics. And then Naturally Fabled Passages are 4 of. And then Promising Vein. Really good to go turn 2 Badgermole Carbon Promising Vein and naturally sacking it and getting 2 triggers off it. Brilliant. Really good to play it and Earthbend on it with Ascension. But what is really powerful against control is the combination of Basking Say and Promising Vein just continually providing infinite landfall triggers as you bring back the Promising Vein over and over again. And it's also a fetch land that comes to play untapped on turn 2, which is very, very relevant. I think it's why it's sort of even with Tunnel here. It could be that you cut 1 more Tunnel and play the Promising Vein, but I think you want to have access to one of these, and having 3 just makes sure you've always got one if you need one. So that's my version of the deck. I've been really enjoying it. What I will say about this deck is I've been winning most of my matches, which feels good, but it always seems to go to game 3. Very rarely, unless my opponent's playing something ridiculous or I'm playing against Demir, do I have that 2-0 win. And then I've got a pitch here, and I've just kind of ranked how I feel about each card. Before I do that, though, I've got this here, and basically, these are your must-haves. You got your Fables, got your Ice Teal, Ascension, Badgermole, Elves. Those are a must, and there's no argument about you want playsets of each of these. The rest is where the debate comes in. And Harmonizer and Chookaboo. These, I think, are always in the decks, except for that one exception that was just trying to go hard on Greenshaw, which, again, I really want to test out more. But Chookaboo does often get, you might see a 3 of, just because it is a little bit weak. I think it is a necessity, just so you can have access to your removal, just so you can use Archwood's Charm on time, just so you can use Melt Striders on time, just so you can do the right, be able to hit your removal. Also, it does provide a threat. I've had double games where I've played 2 Chookaboos and won, but it is weaker than the rest. You play it because you need your 2s, basically. Harmonizer, again, one of the best cards, but you only need one of them. And I guess people think they can draw that one really easily. I like drawing more than one, personally. But I can see why people occasionally cut 1. I would never cut 2 if I'm doing that thing. Of course, Green Shell's an exception. Esper Origins, also up to debate. There were a few South American players playing one of these. Many of them were on none. Again, if you're adding more lands to play the Nursery package, I really don't want to flood. And I found when I played it, yes, I was facing a lot of deceits, and I was losing a lot of my main cards and not being able to put them back in my hand with Origins, not being able to find them off the top by surveilling. I really like Origins. And by the way, I have put this in order of my like of the cards. The next 2, Nursery being the card that's kind of made this mono-green stuff really, really powerful. I wouldn't want to place it unless I'm playing against control, and I think against control, having 3 is fine. I'm still working out the matchups where it is good. I still think Demir is kind of an aggro matchup in a weird way. They call it Demir mid-range, but they beat you down so hard. They play Creature Oko, and then you, like Mono Red, you're always trying to stabilize. So I'm wondering how many to play against them, but if you can resolve 1, it does kind of really hold them up. And as I said, I really like this Mossborn Hydra. I really like it as a 1-of. These are kind of cards that I really, really like, but not playsets. Archdruid's Charm is, I think, really good. Naturally, the players in South America thought less of it. They were still playing 1. Most players were playing 1, sometimes 2, occasionally none. I like having main deck exile enchantment removal. I like having the main deck creature removal. I like being able to find my pieces. When you've had a game where you've sort of traded resources and you're sitting there with a Mightform Harmonizer in play, being able to Archer's Charm up like off the top, Archer's Charm. Oh, we found it. I've got 8 mana in play because the kind of deck I'm playing. Use Charm, fly an Explorer, and kill them. I think the card's just got so much flexibility. I really like having 4. This is one I could be wrong on. This is one where maybe you want to cut it for a card I'll talk about in a second. This package, I think Promising Vein is the way to go. I'll be surprised if anyone's cutting the Promising Veins from their deck who's actually really worked at this deck. They've been very, very satisfying, especially in combo with Basking Say. I think you want all 3 of these. I really like the 3/3/3 spread. I feel like you always have what you need. With 3 of any card in the deck, you'll always be able to find one. Like if you're digging with Explorer, you'll be able to find a tunnel to go under. If you're digging with Explorer, you'll be able to find a Basking Say against control. So I like 3/3/3 for these. Now, Snakeskin Veil, I think maybe one of these might be the card that replaces one Archdruid's Charm in the deck. I think that could be really powerful. A lot of the decks I've been seeing that are winning are playing one of these, and I think it's a good way to sneak in a win, as this deck tends to be able to do. I think Sam mentioned a game the other day where his opponent, he went up against his opponent making 51 with airbending, and then his opponent had Harmonizer, Explorer, Escape Tunnel, went for the Yang, and the Snakeskin Veil cemented it. So that's one of the ones where you can sneak in the win. I really like that. So maybe I'm dropping in an Archdruid's Charm for it. I might have a look at what else. But especially against Lessons, you really need to stick a threat when they go for the Seer. If you can, first of all, make your guy bigger so it can't be seared again. Second of all, protect it for a turn. It can be game-breaking. So that's what I'm still considering. Green Shell, again, great card. Love the card. I am much lower on this. I think the deck is already really slow. I mean, especially if you're cutting Origins, now you've just got Chocobo and Elves on turn 1, and there's one more lower drop. Yeah, Bear, right? You got the you've got the Cub. So yeah, I think it's a bit slow. I really want to try the version that's all in and cutting the Harmonizer. I think that's really interesting. But I could be wrong. Again, those decks were performing very well. But again, all versions of this deck perform well. Last of all, Bristly Bill and Lumbering War Wagon. I think these cards are actively bad. The decks that are winning are playing them. I don't think they're the cards that are making them win. I think Chocobo's bad, and Bristly Bill is just a worse Chocobo in my book. I think you really always have ways to use your mana. I never found myself activating the ability. I just think that it's another 2 for a deck that I don't think really needs another 2. I'd rather be playing the more powerful cards. Lumbering War Wagon, looking at the data, I thought I saw a bit of a correlation between War Wagon and decks that didn't. Yeah, here it is. I don't know. I felt like the decks that were playing a few more were just losing a bit more. I don't think you need another chunky 3 that doesn't completely win you the game. And whereas cards like Harmonize, I guess it's not a 3, but cards like, I feel, Hydra, Archdruid's Charm. Oh. Sorry, I was meant to go to my deck. But yeah, these actually win you the game, where Lumbering War Wagon doesn't quite do the job. So I am a bit lower on that card, and you know what, I'm very low. I think people are playing Lumbering War Wagon don't know what they're doing. So that's kind of my take on things at the moment. Now, this will all change over the weekend. We have 2 more championships, and this deck can be fought against. I've played Lessons 3 times with this deck. I've lost every one, but to be fair, one of those games was lost because I couldn't hold priority. I had a Seed Chip Impact in hand, and they targeted my card with removal, and I wanted to float mana, and the deck, it doesn't give priority unless you have full control, so that was a very easy match to win, and I lost game 3. So I feel like the match is still winnable against Lessons, but Flash Freeze is really how this deck is fought against. Originally, I thought that this deck had a 55% win rate against everything. The win rate, it was like slightly better than everything, so it was never going to blitz a competition. Like there's a lot of players that would go 5-3 and get good win rates with it, but would never crush the competition. But there was nothing that could really fight against it, right? So you couldn't really meta the competition out, but they couldn't really meta against you. I am wrong in this. Flash freeze is a real problem, and lessons playing flash freeze, auto combo playing flash freeze, any blue deck that can cast that card is going to make your life miserable. Against lessons again, all matches have gone to the third. I guess the one I lost because I couldn't hold priority, I would have won in two games, but those post-board games, they get pretty nasty. The lessons players are getting smarter. I'm seeing less and less Storm Chaser Challenge, more and more Idle Quenches, which I think people are severely underrating as a card. And yeah, that it gets a little bit more difficult. You do have great options in that, you've got your Curator and your Lanterns to make sure they don't always have access to Granny and Accumulated Wisdom. You've got some good play against it. You can definitely win matches, but I think if you were going to see the meta shift to fighting it, Flash Freeze is a card you've really got to worry about, and maybe Seer. Being able to Seer a Mightform Harmonizer and Explorer is pretty nasty. But there's the deck. I'm probably going to remember more things after. My brain is mush. I'm so tired. I hope that makes sense if you watch this and got something out of it. If you got nothing out of it, I hope you didn't watch it. I'm going to try and remember anything before I log out. I showed all versions of the decks. We saw Tifo. We saw the big landfall. We saw the rhythm version. We looked at the good cards, or what I think are good cards and bad cards. We saw South American versions. We saw what my list, which is closer to Portland. Deck is really good. Play it or plan to beat it. Bye.